Okay. All right. So topic at hand, we'll do intro for the folks. We got so many familiar faces here. You guys know the drill. But for the newcomers, PSG, I'll explain in a slide who we are. For housekeeping items on this webinar, yes, we will send you the slides. And today's important because we've got some slides where we share, I won't call them best practices, but I'll share kind of starting point settings for the different roles in your development office when it comes to security groups. Those are some slides that you're probably going to want. We record this, we send out the recording. We'll probably get it to you by tomorrow morning. If you do not see the recording, fight that urge to email me and say, Nick, I didn't get the recording, because you did. It's just in your spam folder. For whatever reason, the spam loves to eat. Probably because we have so many links in them, is my guess, because we link to the slides, we link to the recording. But if you really truly didn't get it, shoot me an email and I'll fire it off to you. So that's the main housekeeping. If you have a question, on the screen, there's a Q&A button. If you submit a Q&A, here's the behind the scenes stuff. If you submit an actual question in Q&A, Austin Brown will not sleep tonight until she personally reaches out to you and makes sure your question's answered. So we'll get to most of them on the webinar, but the webinar ends and I get a Zoom message from Austin. She says, hey, do you got that Q&A list there? I'm gonna get cracking on this thing. So that is your direct path to the world's foremost expert on Razor's Edge. So submit a Q&A and we'll make sure to tackle it. We love all the activity in the chat, but if you ask a question in the chat, we usually lose it. So just know that's the main thing. Andy, did I miss anything on housekeeping?
I don't think so. Yeah, essentially, if you use the chat to ask a question, don't get mad at us for not answering it because we told you to use the Q&A.
Yeah, that's right. I absolved myself of that. And I'm all out of sorts because doing this from a hotel room, everything's different. I don't have my giant monitors. I feel weird, like I'm on an ironing board. I'm trying to
My camera's on top of a lamp right now.
But we're professionals. We can handle it. This is what we do. This is what we get up for. Okay, PSG, 30-second background. We are a fundraising consulting firm. At least that's what we started at. We run a whole bunch of annual appeals. We raise multi-millions of dollars for our clients. We also provide Razor's Edge database administration, which is not something we set out to do, but all of our clients needed help with Razor's Edge. So we just started hiring brilliant people like Andy, Austin, Lauren, Stacy Cope, Rob Sims, more and more. And we ended up just taking on a whole bunch of clients that just needed us to run the Razor's Edge. That's the core of our team right there. Man, we got to get some new pictures. That's like 3 or 4 years ago. You can tell we're a remote company by the lack of like group photos that we have together. We also got heavily into automation. So 3 or 4 years ago, Blackbaud announced their Sky API and certified connection to Power Automate. We started really getting involved in building out some automation flows, and it went swimmingly. And clients just kept calling and said, "Oh my gosh, we heard you did this for Field Museum. Can you do this?" And we just kept taking on more and more. The work got bigger and bigger, so much that we actually had to brand an entire service. It's called Automate Genius. Many of the folks on the line here today, I know you're using Automate Genius. Thank you for that. We love what we do. It's so much fun. This is Austin and Stacy speaking about automation at our last BBCon. I bring that up because we are almost a month away, right? Month and a couple days.
Yeah.
So we will see all of you in Philadelphia. If you're attending, even if you're not attending, something fun we started 3 years ago, and now we absolutely cannot ever stop doing it because people love it so much. We're going to do a 10-minute Insider's Guide to BBCon. That's coming up on October 2nd. That is where you get to visit with all of us from PSG, and we talk through all the stuff you want to know. How do you get from the airport to the conference center? What should you bring? What are Stacy Cope's top 5 sessions that you must attend? A whole bunch. It's just a whole lot of fun. We'll also unveil our unofficial BBCon Slack channel, all the fun stuff we always do. So make sure to register for that. I bet Rob can drop that in the chat if he hasn't already. So we'd love to see you at the BBCon preview. All right, I think that's all the intro stuff. Let me set the table, and then I'll let smarter people talk. Razor's Edge security groups. Andy, let's start here. So let's pretend people on the call here today just inherited their DBA role. Somebody left, and they were the last one standing, and their boss said, "Hey, you're in charge of Razor's Edge now."
Cool.
Give me the 30-second, because we're going to talk a lot about database view and a lot about web view and how they're different. Like, what the heck are we talking about? Give me the 30 seconds on that.
Sure. So, and it's important to know that at some point we will actually archive this slide. We will no longer need to use it. But then we're getting closer and closer. So most of you are familiar with Razor's Edge 7, or commonly referred to as the database view, where Blackbaud kind of started. Actually, there was another iteration. But much of the security settings that we will talk about today originate from there. Like, you can't have one without the other. Razor's Edge 7, the database view, security settings are necessary. NXT was designed obviously later on. There's some functionality there that does exist and allows you to provide different types of access. Today's webinar is really kind of a both and. We're trying to transition you over to NXT, but security is not one of those things that it can't stand alone by itself in its current state. And so we will talk about why that is and the direction you need to head.
And the direction Razor's Edge is heading is here. So we're still living in a land where you're over a barrel. You're halfway in what we call database view. You're halfway in web view. Razor's Edge is moving everything to the web. Austin did a fun quiz on Facebook the other day. I saw that, Austin, because our question was, what do people even call it? So we know what the official, it was going to be. Austin, what was it? It was Total Web Solution. Is that the first one?
That was the first one. And then recently Blackbaud changed that to unified view, which makes it confusing because now we're using view in like 3 different instances.
Yep. And I'm sure Blackbaud loved seeing the results of this, which is that 97% of people still only call it web view, right? It's like, it doesn't matter. Like it's kind of like, it's like Twitter and X, right? Like how many people still say Twitter? Like everybody, like nobody says, oh, I saw you on X. So
somebody on Blackbaud's marketing team got fired after this survey. Just saying that out loud.
I hope not. There's a couple good people on there. There's some friends. You're gonna get me in trouble. We're gonna get a bad booth location at BBCon. It's gonna be horrible. All right, so we share that, and we have entire webinars on that transition, right? So like we spend a lot of time helping hundreds of clients and non-clients, just people, we do this for free. We're helping people like navigate, how do I move to NXT? What are the tools? And we'll continue to do that. The reason I bring it up again today is because you have settings in both database view and web view. Lauren's going to walk us through how it all works together, right? So with that, that's a good place to start, actually. Lauren, how about I stop sharing my screen? Lauren's going to show us where these settings are. So show us in database view, show us in web view. When we talk security groups and roles and permissions, what are we looking at? And then I'll take it back and I'll walk us through how you should set up from database administrator to an executive director to a gift officer, what settings they should have, et cetera, et cetera. Okay.
So depending on your security settings yourself, if we're going to look at security in database view, we're going to go to admin, security.
Can you maximize your screen, Lauren? Sorry to interrupt you there, but it's pretty small.
Oh, look at that.
My eyes are old.
It doesn't really help, I don't think.
Oh, don't do that. That's horrible.
That's just big and white.
What are we doing here?
In database view.
Worst webinar ever.
But here is, we'll go over a little bit specifically, but in database view, you got a group where you control the rights and users who are people in that group. And then in web view, is that big enough for you, Andy?
That is so much better than what we just encountered. I don't want to be like.
Oh, yeah. I can see why they're moving to web view. That's gorgeous.
They're putting the view in web view is actually what's happening right now.
From home, we go to security, and they're in 2 different places, but roles are going to be the groups when we're talking about groups. And then we go back to individual users who will match but not be exactly the same as the users in security in database view.
Excellent. Okay. So that's the part that for the newcomers, they're going to go back and rewatch that on the recording to know, okay, what the heck are we talking about? Where are we going? Now I will grab this back like so. Okay. So screen sharing, so it says best practices, but in honesty, I don't know. We've talked a bunch about this. I don't know if I would set this out as best practices, because the truth is, how you set up your security groups and the roles and permissions and everything, there are good arguments all over the place for you to do. For even if you're a food bank in Phoenix and there's a food bank in Orlando, there are good arguments for why you might have different settings. So don't look at this as best practices. Ignore the slide here where I say best practices. These are like a starting point is probably a better explanation. Like if you're coming to this saying, I've never understood security groups, I know I run into issues all the time, like I need to know how should I be doing this. This is a place to start, and then we'll talk through all the ways and reasons you might deviate from this. But we wanted to give you a starting point. So Lauren, I'm going to ask for your help kind of walking through what we're doing here. So we'll start with database administrator. So the role at your organization, you're in charge of Razor's Edge, or the database administrator, commonly called DBA. What are we doing over in database view? And then what are we doing in web view?
In database view, because we can't do everything the way we say we do it, right? Database view, the database administrator is not actually going to be in a group. There's a tiny little checkbox that I'm going to try, hopefully we have time to show later, that says this person has supervisor rights. It's outside of a group, and you just check that box and move on. You have access to do anything and everything. And ideally, you are the only one. Maybe there's one other person, because it's hard to break what you can't touch, right?
Yep.
So
Yep. If there's one other person, who is it?
probably somebody who's also been very well trained, and that's different in different orgs.
The only person you trust.
I was gonna say, or the boss of the DBA who basically promises to never touch
it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. What about IT? Does IT ever fight to be like the sole top of the pyramid?
I'm going to be honest. I've never worked at an org big enough to have that kind of IT.
Yeah.
What a blessing.
And I will say what we've seen some of that, in doing database audits and things, that somebody from IT generally does have it. But again, it's more of if the primary person's on vacation and we need to set up a new user or do this or do that, it's more of that. It's mostly a hands-off sort of situations.
Got it. Okay.
We tend to call that our bus plan.
Our what?
Our bus plan. Somebody gets Regina Georged.
Yes.
We need to have somebody be able to get in there so that we can call for help.
Outstanding. I won't go down the road. My daughter was in Mean Girls last summer, and I had a funny story, but we'll save that for another webinar. Okay, WebView. What is the database admin? What are we doing for security stuff in WebView?
Typically, the database administrator is going to be a solution admin. Again, you may have more than one of these, depending on the role. This is a place where I have seen IT have a solution admin, because there are just some other things that are higher than data work in there. And the organization admin is similar but different. And I have seen that be the DBA. I've seen that be the business person, because it has a lot to do with contacting Blackbaud about any number of things.
Okay.
So that varies from org to org and based how you're set up.
Okay. Austin, why Austin's our most plugged in. Why is it so confusing? Why is database view talking about groups and web view talking about roles, and why do some words like overlap and mean different things? Like, what's going on?
It's just how it was all built, right? So we started with database view, and then when they created web view, they're creating it from scratch. They're not using database view as the foundation. And so the new things that they figure out for web view, they're now creating security roles for those things. And it's going to be a real pill for them to figure out in the transition to web view how security is going to look.
In that, I think that's important to share. So is it fair to say, like, a lot of people get frustrated? They're like, I've known database view, and now, okay, this is the next thing, but it doesn't feel like the next thing. It feels like a different thing, right? It doesn't feel like it was built like with the same terminology, because in honesty, it wasn't, right? They're like two separate tracks being built maybe by different teams or something.
Oh yes, there's lots of different teams that are building out all the different pieces, and they may or may not talk to each other.
So PSG always shoots you straight. So if you came here looking to understand it, like, and walk away with clarity, you may not have that. You're going to walk away with answers, but just know there are things that are messy. They just plain are, right? Like, I know Blackbaud's working hard. They're moving stuff to the cloud. There are many things that are better in NXT, and we'll always call that out when that's the case. But just know, getting into this, like, some things your eyes and ears will not understand. Okay. So that's database. Go ahead.
There's a lot of talk in the chat, Nick, that in schools, IT has something, or our IT does this. And I will say that WebView seems to be more interest to IT groups and for security and such, because when I started in database view, we were hosted on a server in a closet at my first job. So it was less of a cybersecurity issue as it was a good practice and things like that. So that's probably going to continue to evolve we're now talking hosted orgs and things like that, that there just have to be different policies written that didn't 20 years ago.
Yep. I think another point to that, Lori, is WebView allows for a lot of other third-party connectors and plugins, right? With NXT, you have a lot of add-on modules, other vendors that are out there, I mean, including PSG, right? That can kind of plug into that. And IT plays more of a pivotal role in kind of those, extra systems that are coming in, making sure that, the security boxes are checked and, protocols are followed and those kinds of things, far more so in WebView than what we would have experienced in Database View.
Yep, well said. Okay, so that's database admin. Lauren, walk me through exec director. What is a normal, again, not best practice, but what was the starting point for the settings for the executive director?
One of my favorite executive directors sat me down and told me, listen, I'm sure you're doing really good stuff there, but I'm afraid I'm going to break it. And this was well after smartphones came, and Home Dude was using a flip phone because he couldn't break that.
Yeah.
And he said, I need you to teach me how to do everything, but don't let me break it. So I respected that. I showed him he could look at everything. He could find a person. We taught him how to do it. He had no edit access. That was his choice.
Yep.
I've worked with many more executive directors who are like, wait a minute, I'm in charge here. I need to be able to do the things. So we said, okay, so you definitely want your executive director to have view access. If he's going to follow or she's going to follow the protocols of how you add new people, let them have add and edit access. And specifically within database view, they need to have query exports and reports.
Yep.
Because that's going to translate into, even if they never go into database view, they need to have that access.
And spoiler alert, they will not follow your protocols for how to view edit records. But it is their right as an executive director to mess up that database. What about in WebView? What do you let them do?
In WebView, definitely view and export. And I say possibly manage because depending on what dashboards you're using or they're using, they may need to have the manage function checked to be able to edit some of those things. Again, some of them are like, no, just export it for me and let me see it. Some of them, if they want to be able to export a list to print or to carry with them, then those are some of the things they need. They're going to need access in those 5 places.
Yep, got it.
And I think, Nick, something here that's particularly in the web-based thing, like that's important to know. And we talked about this earlier, like everything is different from organization to organization. In some organizations, the executive director is also the director of communications and marketing and also the event person and, right? We're like,
right.
They're going to need access to everything because they are the everything at that organization. So just as you're kind of taking this in, try to put it through that lens that some organizations have 2 people on staff and some organizations have 20 or 30 people on staff.
Yep, well said. Okay, exec director, what about, we've got another role here, gift processor type, or appeal staff. If you're a large organization, you got somebody in charge of the appeal, or multiple people in charge of the appeal. What does that look like?
Again, are we a large organization in that the DBA also does gift processing, or is the only gift processor? So make those changes as needed, but we definitely need them to view, add, and edit. If they manage event payments or events at all, they're going to need access to participants. And as strongly as I feel about delete access for anyone, I am pretty willing to give people access to delete participants, particularly with the way events talk to each other and what events module you have, because duplicate participants are really easy to do in a lot of places. So once we know and are confident that people know how to make sure what we need is where we need it, I'm not worried about people deleting participants.
Yep.
But they need all those places to probably do the work they need to do. And I think I have a bullet point here later, but I'll say it multiple times. In my professional opinion, when we're talking security in Razor's Edge or really any software, less is best. So it is a lot easier to open up access as someone needs it, really needs it versus wants it. than anything else. And if they can't delete participants in the beginning, maybe you want them to do that. So.
Yep. What I'm hearing you say too is that it's not like, don't come into this, you're like, oh, gift processor, Lauren said, here's the stuff I give them. It might be a journey, right? Like you start with view ad and then you earn the right, to delete participants. Like once we're comfortable, we train them up. Like so it's a journey the whole way, right? Maybe the real security groups, Lauren, are the friends we make along the way. What about web view permissions?
Kind of similar. They need to view, manage, and export. Manage is the web view synonym for add, edit in database view for the most part. So they need to view, manage, and export in all of those places. A particular note is if they're going to be managing your donation forms, that's a separate box down below the standard RA and XT roles. So you gotta look for that to give them that. And if you're still using Online Express, that's a separate place within database view.
Yep. Shout out to Online Express and our last webinar where we talked through all things donation page and NXT donation forms and everything else. There's a link to that, I'm sure. Gift officer, what do we allow the gift officers to do?
By the way, before you jump into this is where the chat is going to start to melt, because if we have any MGOs on this call, they are going to fight like hell to try to get the access that they absolutely want.
And I got to tell you, so this is we have a good split here. Like I identify with those. Like when we do audits and stuff and there's a major gift officer, it's like I've got to fill out a 30-page form to add in somebody's email address because I just had lunch with her and the spouse is the one that wants to get contacted, but I've got to go add all these tickets and do XYZ and go through. Like I feel for that person. I think that is insane that we're set up that way. Lauren, you're going to identify with the person who's like, no, because they're going to mess it up, right? Like there's a system here.
I'll have you know, I had a really difficult conversation with a coworker who I'd consider a friend who wanted access to something. And I said, that's not your business. Like, you're not that person's supervisor. You're going to see that data as it comes in. They wanted to see, it was an MGO who wanted to see batches.
Yeah.
So that they could see as they go. And I was like, no, you're just going to slow the process down. If you are sticking your head in that office to say, how come you haven't committed this batch? How come this hasn't happened? I see this gift. I'm like, you got to just let them do their job.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. An MGO, even if their title is not major, maybe they are another kind of gift officer. You got to wait till the information comes to you because there are processes all along the way. So we got to get it. The flip side of that is if you want an MGO to enter actions, they have to be able to edit them.
Yes.
So we need to trust that they can do their jobs in the same way that we need them to trust that we can do our jobs. Teach somebody how to enter a phone number properly. Teach them how to enter an email address properly, because it's not fair to ask people to let us do our jobs if we're not going to let them do theirs.
You had everybody until that last part, and then they gave up on you. Like everybody's cheering you on, and they're like, "Oh, wait, what? Oh man, I don't like that last thing she said." All right, what do we let them do in WebView?
Again, that possibly manage is going to be something. If I got a new gift officer come to me and they have used Razor's Edge for 10 years, but never at our organization, they're not going to get to manage stuff in WebView until they know our processes. Because again, every org is a little bit different. I've done Razor's Edge for almost 20 years next summer. And when I first worked with an organization, I'm like, wait a minute, you got to give me some time to get in here and see what you're doing before I even know if I can help, because you may do something that I don't understand or that doesn't make sense to me. So again, depending on their role and the size of your department, your MGO may also be the one in charge of the emails or in charge of the events. So maybe they need access to that, or maybe they're not, but they're inviting people. And there are some places where the night before the big dinner, or the 2 days before the big dinner, all hands on deck, everybody's making phone calls, everybody needs lists.
Yeah. Yeah, totally get it.
Can I make
Like
a
you said,
public
it's
service
living, breathing.
announcement?
I can change your access real easy if we need to give you access or it's not working.
Yep. Yeah, Andy.
I'd like to make a public service announcement. So I fully endorse, Lauren, everything that you've said in terms of kind of looking at training people up or possibly graduating like access up based on, how they've been able to do that. One of the things that we see, like when we do audits, is, people probably have more access than they should, and we'll get to some of that later. But in terms of training them up, it's not just telling them, it's documenting what the processes, procedures are. And I will tell you, the vast majority of organizations we work with, the documentation is lacking. So if the idea is like, hey, eventually we want to like turn the keys over to them, like you still want to have like the user's manual like in a drawer or like, on a SharePoint file or something like that. And so I challenge you as organizations to like, if you are going to kind of go around maybe limiting some access and then eventually opening it up, make sure that you document processes and procedures, how to add a record, how to remove a record, how to edit, like those kinds of things will help keep the database clean.
Yep. Well said. Okay, a couple more, and then we'll get to some general advice, and we got tons of questions in the Q&A. Austin is doing a great job keeping an eye on that. Finance team. So what does a finance team need?
Reports.
Yeah, right. They want to reconcile. They want to yell at you about taking pledges because GAAP accounting principles don't allow for pledges, and you're destined to argue every month for the rest of your life. Anything you don't let finance do?
Edit anything.
Yep. And that, Andy, there's a reason for that too. But that not because they're going to screw it up, but like
No,
there's
it's a checks and balance thing.
checks and balance.
It's a control function, and so most organizations, if you get audited, or if you audit yourself, that is one of the things. And I've been a part of the audit teams before, where they will ask, what can finance do? What can finance see? Right. So if they have the ability to go in and do adjustments, to do edits inside of Razor's Edge, it's very easy for them to take money from one place and put it in their pocket. And so it really is a security function for the organization. That is almost necessary. It really is necessary to prevent any kind of fraudulent activity of any kind. So it's not that they are not that they're not important. It's just that it's a control issue.
Yep. Well said. Marketing comms, again, big shops. Sometimes they're running their comms out of NXT like email lists. Sometimes a small shop marketing comms is also the development director and the Git processor and everything else. So walk us through this one.
I actually worked in an org where marketing comms had an intern who didn't have anything else to do. So they got edit privileges and they updated newsletter addresses that came back returned. Because, never mind the fact that we ran our thing through NCOA, we had a lot of college kids. We got tons of these, stacks and stacks of returns. So our comms team had edit access.
Yep.
But mostly they are pulling reports or pulling queries and maybe looking at some of the stats on how emails did. They may be managing emails, maybe they're not, but I really do think, and I'll go down fighting on this, somebody in an org needs to be in charge of who's getting emails and mail pieces when.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody needs to know how many pieces of mail one person is getting in a month. I think it's a collaborative effort, but I think somebody needs to be in charge that we're not sending 14 email newsletters on Tuesday morning because that's the best time to get a review. Well, then you guys need to back off and let somebody be in charge of that. So maybe that's where comms comes in here.
Yeah. And that's an issue in NXT, right? Because if you're using NXT, there is no like, you have one department. I think we have a lot of large Catholic dioceses, right? So like prison ministry sends an email blast out. Lots of people are like, I'm not passionate about prison ministry, unsubscribe. They've just unsubscribed from the holy enchilada, right?
Yeah.
So major issue there.
One of the things I want to point out too, and it's fresh because I just worked with a client that we work with, in talking about access. They were having issues kind of accessing some of the lists that a data person had created to send out the email blast. And they specifically said, I only want to have access to the list. Like I have no desire to have any constituent like giving information. Like that's not my thing. Like I don't want to know what people give or don't give. Like I just want to know who needs to get this. I want to be able to see if they got it, what did they do with it, clicks, opens, those kinds of things, and that's it. And so again, looking at those roles, particularly in WebView, like you don't want them to see giving information and those kinds of things for the comms person. And generally they don't want to. So just something to kind of be aware
of.
And full disclosure, we do not, in our sandbox database, we do not have constant contact or the integration live or anything. I do not know where security lives if you use that integration. Austin
Yep.
might, but I don't.
Yep.
I think
Soon.
it's one of these weird things, right? Like where they roll out a new feature and then the security team hasn't quite caught up yet. So I don't know that there is a security permission
More to come.
for that integration.
Somebody in the chat earlier was saying how like that's right, you build it with security as like the start of it, and then you work like that person's having a rough day because they just like implemented constant contact and they realize none of this all works together.
Yeah, that's probably need to have a conversation with your team about the areas that you do have access to, but you should ignore.
Yes. And we have set a goal. So we PSG. So again, we do tons of these free. We love what we do. We're the largest user of Razor's Edge on earth. We exist in this great spot where we can just be very candid and call balls and strikes and help people. We're working to get up to speed. I'm sure one of our clients is going crazy with the constant contact. So they announced at the last BBCon, we hadn't really seen or heard anything. It's made a little bit more noise lately. But as soon as we know more about it, we will do one of these webinars and walk people through like how it works. What was overpromised, what works really well, like how it works in the real world. We'll dig into that. So more to come on that. Okay, last role, and then we'll get some advice, and then we'll get to all the Q&A here. What do we do with board members, volunteers, people that just need like a little bit of access?
Again, less is best. So I'm always a little iffy when someone says, I want this volunteer or this board member who maybe has signed or been trained in our confidentiality agreement, maybe has been through our training. They might be accessing this on their phone in a shared Wi-Fi and, plugged into a questionable security wherever they are, So I'm really going to push back to say, why do they actually need access?
Mm-hmm.
And you've made a good case. You said, I want the board to be able to look at these 4 reports, and they're not available as a dashboard that I can export and send to them right before the board meeting. I want them to do these things. Okay, fine. Let's talk. So we get them some access, probably just reports and dashboards, maybe a list or two, or in database view, maybe some records to edit if they're going to be making calls for you. Actually, we're going to put in notes or things like that. But I would be most inclined in database view, depending on the volunteer, depending on the board member, to set up gift security by fund. So maybe they can only see 1 or 2 funds of gift. So to the library fund, to the whatever we're doing a big push for, and notepad security by type. That's where in this instance, you're going to correct email addresses, you're going to correct phone numbers, give them access to 1 notepad, and it is a volunteer update form. They put everything in there, and as the DBA, I have a query that looks for notes of that type, and I make the changes according to our policies, because maybe they gave you an email address that we know is junk, but there's no reason, and it's not fair to assume that they would know that.
Yep.
In
And
WebView, if they have a portfolio, maybe you want them to have access to fundraising.
Yep. And Austin, you in the automation team have been solving this a lot of other ways too, right? So beyond just like using built-in stuff that might be a little bit wonky, you can automate the heck out of all of this, right? Like serve up daily digest emails just to a board member. Like, here's the people that were on your list that made a gift. Am I correct in that?
100%. And have that based on whatever conditional logic you want. You could also set up an add-in in WebView that is a data intake form. So if someone wants to change a phone or an email, they can click that I have a change button, and that sends an email to the DBA, and they can either approve or deny it, and then the automation takes care of the rest. So Power Automate can help with so much of this.
Yep. Yep. If you haven't yet, and we're not talking about Power Automate specifically today, but if you haven't yet, go check out some of the webinars we've done on it. We'll be talking about it a bunch at BBCon too, but just everything that's come up here, just from even people entering things and you're nervous about it, set up an automation that pings you when they've added an email. If you want to monitor it for a little while, you can do. Automation is your best friend in the world. Like if you're a DBA, just the sky's the limit for what you can set it up to do to keep you informed. And doing so might let you give a little bit more access to people that want it right on the front end, knowing that you've kind of got that backstop. So we're big fans of automation. Let's do general PSG advice, and then we've got so many questions. I want to make sure we dig in there. general advice. We got 3 things to share, right? Number one, limit access to reduce liability. Lauren touched on this really well before. I think Austin did as well. People in the chat were weighing in. Like, the reason you limit access is not to make people's lives difficult. It's because you want to reduce liability. Don't give people access to things they don't need. There's some compliance stuff when it comes to like giving finance access. Like, you shouldn't give them access to edit. So start from the principle of we want to give people, limit the access to what people really need. On that first one, Lauren, you said it, but is like give them the minimum to do their job, not the minimum, it was something like give them what they need to do their job and nothing more. Is that right?
Less is best, Tim. Less is best.
Yeah. But build trust, right? So it's not it's a journey. Less is best. And then when they come to you with a use case like, hey, I'm on the road and I'm constantly getting notes like, oh, my son would be interested in this, and I want to add the son into the household, like give them that ability, like make sure it's a two-way.
Empower your users. Teach people how to do their jobs.
Yes, 100%. Minimize the number of solution admins and supervisor users. What do you say there, Lauren?
That's actually a limiting of access to reduce liability. And also, I don't want to ever say there should only be one because of circumstances we mentioned earlier, but you want to minimize them and choose them well. So like if IT is going to be that holder, if your boss is going to be that holder, as a DBA, I lived in development and in admin in the same org as things got restructured. So that may change, but limit that so that there are people available, but not too many.
And Andy, we see that, right? We do audits and everybody's a super user on everything, like as a default.
Yeah. It was kind of like, and I've done it. I was gonna jump in there. Like, there are situations where we look at like what everybody's security like role access is, and it's straight up like supervisor across the board. So everybody has a master key, which is crazy. And I will tell you, there is a direct correlation when we do audits to how many people have supervisor access and how clean the data is when we look at data hygiene.
Yeah.
Limited access, much cleaner data. Wild, wild west for access, the data is pretty inconsistent and dirty.
It doesn't do you any good to have a code table if everyone can change the table.
And add to it, and like that's how you end up with 30 different salutation types and actions that are 100 different actions long.
Yep. The final one that's not on here that I would just share, like think of everything as a sliding scale. There is no, the reason I backed off of best practice, like there is no perfect solution. There just isn't, right? If you want to optimize for a clean database, you will restrict the entire world from doing anything, right? You will have the cleanest database in the world. And if only that's what would have your nonprofit thrive, no one could touch it and it'd be glorious. On the other end,
you'd also be doing all the work yourself.
You'd be doing all of it.
Probably not have the time to do all the work, and then thus upsetting your team because they're like, "Hey, I asked for this thing 3 weeks ago, and you haven't updated this email." It's like because I have 800 other things to do because I'm the only person that can do it.
Yes, and then that adds more data staff and more data staff and stuff, and then eventually you have, so it's always a sliding scale. It's priorities. We want to prioritize a clean database, but we also want to empower major gift officers, as messy as they all are as humans, Andy. We want to empower them to do their job, which is bring revenue in and meet with donors and live in the messy real world, and not in the code tables. Like it's always a sliding scale. Your job is to, our job, pick. Call balls and strikes, find the medium, the middle ground. Communication solves everything. But do not walk away from this being like, here is the rule from PSG. We absolutely have to be that way. That's not how it works. It's just start out less is more, right? It's a journey. Train people up, give them more access as they grow and as you train them up. That's our best advice. Austin, go ahead.
My extra thing to just point out here, because it's implied with number 2. So supervisor rights basically means everyone can delete things, right? So by limiting supervisors, you're limiting the ability to delete. Nobody needs delete rights. Like I cannot say this enough. Like maybe in Lauren, the example of like a gift officer might need to delete participant records. That is one area. That is not everything in the database.
And it's so important. It's its own checkbox.
Yeah.
Correct. Right? Yeah. Like if you're starting out and everyone in your system is supervisors right now, right? The first thing you do, put them all into general groups, but without delete rights. Like that is step 1. And then from there, work through all your roles and
smart.
We had a client, and I'll just never, ever, ever forget this ever. who said, "Hey, I accidentally deleted the database." And I said, like, "What do you mean you deleted the database?" She said, "I hit a button and like we have 0 records in the database." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And this is a person who probably should not have been able to have that level of access. And they paid a lot of money to restore the database, but like that's the exact point. One other thing before we get into Q&A that I want to mention, yeah, you're crying and laughing and just like, oh my gosh, am I going to get fired? So one other thing I want to mention, which I think is an incredible practice, is reviewing the access. So like we talked about who should have it, right? But like today it's not a look at it, set it and forget it forever and ever, amen. We do a lot of audits where I will say, hey, like talk to me about this person. And they're like, well, this person hasn't worked here in 3 years. And I was like, why do they still have access to Razor's Edge? Why are they still this? Why? So like having some sort of regular routine of reviewing who has access to what, are the users that are in there, like should they be in there? Like you spend a lot of time focusing on, hey, we've got a new hire, we need to add them to the database. You don't spend that same amount of time when somebody retires, leaves, gets terminated, whatever, removing them, and that is
Yep.
equally important.
Yep. Austin, start looking at the Q&A and see which one you want to start with. I got to share the story first. Andy, you're talking about deleting the database. Years and years ago at PSG, we doing something like this, and we were talking about that. And I shared there's that meme of like the old guy sitting at the computer and he drags a file on his computer into the trash, and the whole computer disappears.
I remember
And he's
that.
like, "Oh no!" And I said something about that. And there was somebody on the webinar from like the Center on Aging, and she got so upset with me. And like it turned into this whole big thing that like I just was trying to be funny about an old person deleting his computer, and it was like this entire ordeal. I'll never forget that. That was 4 or 5 years ago. I still think about that every time I give a webinar. I'm like, boy, I hope somebody from the Center on Aging isn't going to get offended if I say something here. Austin,
Surprise, they're on today.
I know. I'm trying to think who that person was. They're like sitting there right now, going like, Austin. There are so many questions and answers. You lead us.
There are, but there's veins.
Yeah.
So we're gonna choose some topic veins.
Go nuts, and then save me 5 minutes at the end because I want to talk about the YouTube Ninja channel you
Okay, so we've got 10 minutes.
Yep.
Let's do this. All right. So we got a lot of questions about what's the best practice for removing a coworker who's left the organization, and is there any clout to just removing their rights but keeping the user account? Like, why would you do that?
Good question.
I did see there was another question too about starting the username with a Z. That's actually my preferred method. I have in databases I manage, I have a user group with 0 rights. And it's called former staff. And I put them in there and change their username to start with a Z so that we can see when they, like, if they were the one who created it, then that maintains, like it was last changed by Z Michael, and Michael hasn't worked here in 3 years, then we probably don't need that report. It can go. And then after X number of time, it varies from place to place. Then we break we do go ahead and delete it. If all their stuff has fallen off, we will go ahead and delete their records. I know somebody said their auditors don't like it because auditors are a tricky balance, right? Like you love them and you hate to see them coming because like, I don't have to do anything. Well, you should be doing everything above board and according to a system, but we just got to make some things work. So I would always recommend not deleting them right away. And especially if you're in an org where people cycle through, it is a real pain to get somebody reactivated properly. Or if you like turn off their Blackbaud emails, then Blackbaud says like, oh, we can't email them ever again. Fix it. They can, but it takes a little time.
So I'm hearing a consensus from our experts that yes, go the route of Z or double Z when you start having staff with Z. Eventually you can delete them, but there's no real harm other than having to argue with the auditors every now and then.
Yeah.
And lots of benefits. Okay, got it. What else, Austin? What do we want to tackle?
What is a good practice for NXT rights versus database view security rights? So this person is asking, should they go through the trouble of setting up security groups and then give all access to WebView?
No.
Or would you recommend setting up individual roles?
I definitely recommend individual roles. And I think Andy's the one who shared this in our planning meeting. Fun fact, I missed half our planning meeting because I was feeding hummingbirds. But database view says what specifically you can see and do where,
Mhm.
and web view, how did you phrase it, Andy, is how and why you're
Yes.
going to do it.
Yep. Yep.
So they work hand in hand. And if you just give somebody full access in WebView, there's probably going to be things that they don't need or
Mhm.
don't work properly because they think they should have full access, but their database view security is properly restricting it, and they're just going to tell you a lot of things are broken.
Because database view trumps web view. Is that a true statement?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Like that, what database view is the foundation. Like
Yep.
Yeah.
you can't have web view without the database view.
Got it. Okay. Let's try and do some lightning round. Do we have any easy ones to answer, Lauren or Austin? Are they all messy? Like it depends.
I see one from earlier that I want to answer about security by constituent code and security by funds in WebView. And somebody else asked about, like, I want them to be able to see only certain things. That's your ticket. So if you limit someone to specific funds in WebView and in database view, and it's backwards. So look at the top, because words mean things. You're unchecking boxes for things you want people to have access for when you look in there. So if I only want them to see the library fund, then I right click, select all, and then scroll through because they're not in alphabetical order, they're in order of creation. Uncheck the box that says they can view library fund, or it says they cannot view library fund because that means they can. So now when they go into WebView and they run a dashboard that you set up, even if it has the library fund and the natatorium fund, they have no idea how much was raised for that swimming pool, because it's not going to break the report, but it's not going to show the line item for the natatorium.
Yep. And kudos for Lauren for introducing the term auditorium to half of our audience here today. What?
I have a good one.
Yes.
Should finance be posting batches to FE, or should that be the advancement team?
There are a couple questions kind of related to that. You have opinions on that, Lauren?
I do not have strong opinions on that. I have a lot of users who don't post. So
Andy,
Yeah.
what do you think? Andy is also chairman of a large bank, so he comes with a little finance perspective.
So for me, like I have no problem with finance being able to post to FE. Again, where we get into problems is the creation of those batches, and who can put the data into those batches really needs to reside in the advancement office, right? Like I can't be the person who collects all the money and deposits all the money without somebody knowing how much money I collected and how much money I deposited, because if I'm the only person in control of that, I can make that number whatever I want it to be. And again, there are liability issues in that. So
and you're vulnerable to mistakes and attacks that you didn't have anything to do. It's not about trusting
absolutely,
people. It's about
absolutely right.
things that lost in the mail and you can't prove they didn't.
Again, it's just more of a true like safety protocol. Like, I mean, like not from a like, oh, like I'm gonna, get burned or whatever, but like that's the reality there. It's just better to be safe than sorry, I guess.
Yeah. Well said. All right, I'm going to ask a couple here. Let's see here. Janice asks, what's the difference in the checkbox for make organization admin and make solution admin? Austin, what's the difference?
An organization admin is on the Blackbaud account level. So that is your permissions as an organization as a part of Blackbaud. So what's in your contract? Who should you contact for CSM? That's organization admin. Solution admin is specific to every solution, right? So Razor's Edge, Financial Edge, Education Management, etc. And so that
Each can have their own admin for that product. Got it.
And I would say often the person who is the organizational admin is the person who signs the contract. Like that is often a CFO or like kind of top ranking official at the organization, way more so than a DBA.
Yep. Are we able, Amy asked, can you create rules or are they canned and created by Blackbaud? I assume you can create rules as we just talked
Blackbaud
about.
doesn't give you any. You have to create them all yourself.
So not only
There is no
can you,
can.
not only can you create roles, Amy, you have to create roles. There is no other path for you.
But here's where WebView is better than database view at that. You can copy roles in WebView, in security, in database view. You have to do it all from scratch. So you have to open up a screenshot or a printed version.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Janice asks, I have an employee who needs the proper access to manage and create the donation forms, but doesn't want that employee to have access to update tables or change or add new users or manage roles. How would you do that? Austin, did you have a thought on that?
Yeah, so that is sort of in the granular roles that Lauren was talking about. So you can give people the access to donation forms under the Blackbaud apps. So like you see all those boxes in WebView, you got to go down, keep going, and there's one specific for Blackbaud apps. And then access to tables, add or change users, manage roles. That's all sort of in database view, and whether you give someone access to admin security or whether you give someone access to manage tables.
Yep. So doable between the two. Okay. Oh man, there's all right. Definitions. We talked through that.
We answer one and two more pop up.
Yeah, I know. What about Bernard asked a good question. I'm going to ask Austin. She's our expert. How likely is it that Blackbaud will include an audit trail in what is being called unified view, but everybody just calls it web?
I'm going to say it's unlikely for two reasons. One, a Blackbaud partner has already built an app called Audit Trail for admin development, so you can go check that out. And also you can build your own audit trail by using the APIs and webhooks.
There you go. So they're not going to build it because it already exists. You just got to get to it a couple different ways.
Either pay with time or money. That's it.
Yep. Well said. I'll ask the last one from I'm going to say Shani, Lauren, and then I'm going to talk about ninja stuff. Can you think of a reason why someone, this is specific, but I want to help people in their problems. Can you think of a reason why someone doesn't have the event tile in NXT on a constituent record, but they can see the event tab on the same record in database view?
I can.
Oh, let's go. This is why we show up, right? Everybody comes. It's like
We
a lot of
saved this for the end. We didn't even practice this ahead of time. This wasn't like a hey, like
what do we got?
let's
What
keep
do
them
we got?
guessing for the big
There's a
unveil at
really
the end.
good chance that that person does not have an event role. And when you are looking, like I just made these up this weekend, and you can see the appeal coordinator. I want to edit. They can either administer events, or manage the participants. And depending on what their settings are here, will tell you if they have them. If they do not have a role in events at all, then they just don't get the tile.
Got it.
If they have the role, they have the boxes checked, you can choose what you want them to allow to do. And these boxes, people don't know this, like it will automatically check things and uncheck things for you. But then you can come in and no, actually, I don't want them to edit the settings, whatever. After you make that change, have them sign out, sign back in, and then they can see if they aren't there or you're working like me at 7 p.m. because that was easier for you that day. I recommend a fake email account either on your server, like if your IT will give you an additional email address, or there are some shortcuts that people who know email things, but then create a role for yourself and log in a different browser, not just a different window. So Chrome is my preferred browser, but I also have Edge on this computer, and I log into Edge as lauren@psg@gmail.com, and I log in so I can see side by side what that person can see and what they can access. When you get it right, take your fake username out, put the new person in, and they're good to go.
I love that. That is truly a best practice. Although we shied away from the term earlier, that is the way you should be doing it always. It's just so much easier. Just use that dummy email address, get it right, and then effect a change.
Nick, I know you want to talk about ninjas, but I need 5 seconds.
Your 5 seconds is a normal answer.
It'll be 5 seconds.
3 minutes.
It became apparent that with a lot of the terminology talk today, we likely want to edit our handy dandy, like this is what stuff means in database view and this is what it means in Razor's Edge resource sheet. We will update that based on what we talked about today and probably send out the newest version soonish.
And by soonish, she means we'll have it for you at BBCon, certainly. Hard copies and updated digital copies. Okay. What's coming up next? So I wanted to plug this because it's so much fun. So if you find these helpful, right, we do these, and if they are helpful, I love it too when we can answer a very specific granular, like, yes, here's exactly what's going wrong. If these are helpful to you, and I know they are because everybody keeps showing up, we are trying to get even better, and we started this amazing thing called a YouTube channel. YouTube is on the internet. It's a new thing where computers are connected together. You can go and check it out. Please subscribe, because this is where, so these webinars are long form. We have an hour. It always goes by in a hot minute, but we have time to really dig into a topic. That we get so many questions where people are like, how do I merge constituents? How do I do a soft credit thing? How do I do XYZ thing? So when we have those, we actually have a YouTube channel set up for short form videos that looks like this, where you can go in and you'll see all of your favorite PSG people and some of the extra ninjas. You've got Stacy in there, Lauren's in there, Austin's in there. I think we just got some stuff from Claudia and Jen. So like, this is where we're going, man, that transition is killing me. What is going on? Why is everything shattering glass? Subscribe. Oh, let me back up. The rails are off. I tried to go fast. This is a nightmare. Man, if you're watching this live, I am sorry for you. We'll cut all this out. Go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So that is anytime we post, we do post our full webinars there, but we are growing this, right? We are stepping in. We know, yes, there's Blackbaud customer support. This may be more helpful if you have a specific something you want to see how to do from a real person, just walking you through what the heck you do. That's what the Blackbaud Ninjas is going to do. It's primarily Razor's Edge right now. It will grow. We'll tackle other solutions, but just so you know, it's out there. So I'm sure we can share the link in the chat as well. Every time we do this, there's hundreds of subscribers. We get so much feedback that people like this and want this. So we're leaning into it. As we have more time, we're going to keep loading up more and more photos. So make sure to subscribe there. And what we have coming up next is that BBCon preview. Is that the next one? Is that the next time we're all together? Do we have anything else?
September 18th, we're on. Remember?
Yeah.
Get that one.
Thank you, Rob. What are we tackling, Rob?
That's a great question. Automating gift acknowledgements.
Ooh, I like it. All right. Ooh, that is a really good one. That's all right. So automating gift acknowledgements, a huge pain point for folks. Make sure to show up for that, and then come back for the BBCon preview. Andy, anything I missed as we wish people farewell here?
No, I don't think so.
2 videos because I missed one last week. If you'll send me this Q&A, I will make at least one of them an answer to somebody's question.
Oh, look at that. I love it. Austin, Lauren just promised 2 videos. What's you going to trumpet that?
I'll send one of these a video that already exists. How do you add a user in database view?
I love it. Well said. Okay, folks, we appreciate you. Thanks for coming to this stuff. We have a lot of fun, but we do it because we get your feedback and it seems to be helpful. So we'll keep doing it. Have a wonderful day, and congrats on college football season starting up. We'll see you at the next one.